Welcome back to Sports Talk with Dad. As always, my name is Kyle, and I cannot call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me. A man so old, he makes Steve Martin look young. My dad, Tim.
Steve Martin's a lot older than me, and I don't make him look young.
Okay, that's the joke. This is why you do not have a career in comedy.
Well, people know that.
But anyway, I made the joke because I have to tell you a story, and I've been holding on to it.
You met Martin Short.
No, but that would be a dream come true. Martin, if you're out there, love you. Not the story, though. So I was in Quick Trip, gas station in Wisconsin. For those of you that don't know, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't know Quick Trip, but some people don't. Anyway, at the gas station, I'm walking down the aisle, smash my hand.
Okay.
It hurt. And so I yell at the same thing I always do, which is, son of a motherless goat. I say it. I learned it when I had kids because I don't want to swear in front of the kids, right?
Well, and I raised you right because you knew Three Amigos.
I did know Three Amigos. That's where I got it from. And I walk down, and this guy about your age looks at me and goes, "Did you just say son of a motherless goat?" I was like, "Yeah."
I like this guy.
And I walked to a different aisle because my hand was hurt. I didn't even think about it till afterwards. And all of a sudden, I'm in the other aisle getting whatever I'm getting, and I feel this tap on my shoulder, and the guy goes, "Tell us we will die like dogs."
Okay. I love this guy. I don't know who he is.
I looked at him, and I was like, you and I have just become best friends. Like, it was one of the greatest things that has happened to me.
That's awesome. And for those of you, I know there are other families that are like this, but we can't watch movies with other parts of our family because we will start doing every line from the movie, Three Amigos being one of the bigger ones.
Yes. My wife has told me repeatedly I'm not allowed to do the plane bit anymore from Martin Short.
It's a mail plane.
It's a mail plane. See his little balls? She's like, "It's not funny." I was like, "You just don't get it." She's like, "I get it." I'm like, "All right, fine." We have a lot to talk about on the show.
Yeah.
A coach who we are very fond of was hired by his hometown team. Playoff games galore. But before we get into that, we have come across a book we have to talk about.
Yeah, and it's great because you and I grew up in a small town, Wisconsin.
We were born in a small town.
Yeah.
I don't know the rest of the words.
I don't know. The person we are going to talk to in just a minute grew up in the same small town on Long Island in New York. And it's a story very Hoosier-esque, and it's a great book.
It is an unbelievable book, and we are very blessed to be joined by an award-winning author of the book, This Is Panther Country, Tom McKeown. Tom, how you doing?
Pleasure to be here. I'm doing great.
So, Tom, you and I have been going back and forth a little bit over the last weeks. We're really happy we were finally able to make this work. You and I grew up around the same time, small town. Tell me a little bit about what happened in Long Island, and this is very much almost a Hoosiers-like story.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. It was actually when I saw the movie Hoosiers, almost 40 years ago, it kind of reminded me so much of this run that we got on that it was even back then I started formulating that I'd love to somehow write, catalog, or do something with this story at some point. I retired about a year and a half ago, sold my company. I decided I'm going to give it a shot to sit down and try and write this book. And it's about, it's not the whole New York State, but back in the early mid 70s, New York State never had, like Indiana had, like an all school included state championship. We had 11 sections in Suffolk County, 11 sections in New York. One of them was Suffolk County, and they all kind of played to the top of their counties, and it all ended there. And also the New York City schools had a separate league called the Public School Athletic League. And then there were also a lot of private schools. But Long Island had two counties, Nassau and Suffolk County. And for years, they just had a Nassau and a Suffolk County championship, and that was it. And then the state body that ran the tournament decided they'd let each county play the next one over for in that next year, 1975. So Suffolk got a chance to play Nassau, And Nassau had always kind of looked down a little bit on Suffolk. I don't know if you're familiar with the geography of Long Island, but Nassau is the one that's closer to New York City. They always kind of thought they had superior basketball. Suffolk was, particularly back then, a little more agrarian. The more you went out on Long Island, there were farms and stuff. The Hamptons were not the Hamptons you see or you thought in them in TV shows today. It was a lot of farms out there. Um, so they had announced at the beginning of that particular season that they were going to have a Long Island championship. Suffolk was going to play Nassau, and there's about 60 plus schools in each county, so it was a big championship. 130 schools. Babylon was probably in the bottom 20, bottom 10% in size, and the Suffolk coaches had been dying for years to get a crack at Nassau, and they were hoping it was going to be one of the bigger perennial power schools. And they were not too thrilled when a Cinderella went on a run to get to the first ever Long Island championships and face one of the Nassau powers, which we ended up doing. This story kind of takes that run. Babylon, we were one of the smaller schools. We do pretty well in our league, which is one of the smaller populated ones, but we'd always get knocked out in the playoffs in the first round. And that particular year, we had a really good, a deep team. It was about 7 or 8 deep. We had probably a once in a generation player in Glenn Vickers, who was only a junior that year. And we had this great coach, Roy Coble, who had a very dynamic offense, really knew X's and O's, but he never really had a great talented team to really apply it to. So, everything came together that particular year. And during that time, I was playing on the junior high team. So I was in 8th grade. So it's told from the viewpoint of me, looking up at, the guys I looked up to, and the coach I always pestered to, ask him what's his plan for the next day and stuff like that. And so the book kind of takes off from there. So in addition to talking about basketball, I talk about, life growing up in Babylon, which was, graduating class there was about 150 in a senior class. It was not a big school. We're probably about 3 to 4 miles catty corner within the village. There was the village of Babylon, which was part of the town of Babylon, which had 8 schools. But we kind of coexisted very well. There were, it was probably about 80% white, about 15% black. There was a Hispanic population, but we all seemed to mix and get along very well. And we had differing schools on each border. But it was a good and interesting place to grow up on. I didn't realize until I got older that very few people that I've met, went to kindergarten with the same class you graduated high school with. We had one grade school, one elementary school, and one junior high school, which was all in one building. So it was quaint, and that's what made it a Cinderella story.
We were from the same small town, only we were in Wisconsin.
Okay.
So talk to me about the coach. You said he had been there for a while.
Mhm.
He had a unique way of coaching. How did he bring everybody together, and what happened once they started to get on a real roll?
Yeah. So he's a really interesting character. I'd say character, but a very bright, well-read man. He was phys ed teacher, but he could talk philosophy with you. I think I brought that up a couple of times in the book. But he was, part part nightclub comic. You'd see him in the halls. He'd always be slapping you on the back, telling you a joke. And then, I only had a little experience with him, seeing him in a huddle, but he totally turned. He was a taskmaster. Drill master when he got the team down and everything. But he had these innovative offenses. First of all, they were kind of designed though that a bad team could play them. That you didn't have to be a great team to run these offense. But he'd always been wanting, God, if I could ever get the talent to run this, how far could I go with this offense and these plays? And he finally got that team. He had won a couple of league championships earlier in his career. I think it was about his 10th season when they went on this run. And they had a pretty good team the year before, and they expected to go farther in the playoffs, and they got knocked out in the first round. So everybody's kind of afraid that might happen again. But then, they got into it. It was a really tough league we played in too. Probably the second and maybe 4th best teams in the county that year were in our league. There were 8 leagues in Suffolk County, so we had a bruising league schedule, which primed us pretty well for the playoff run. And we also had 2 major injuries on the team. during during the league season, but they got better for the playoffs. So, so we were even stronger. We went into the playoffs. So he was, I'd be like eighth grade. He'd sit down with you and he'd start moving salt shakers around or whatever, and just kind of talking basketball. It's like, one of those guys. So it was always fun to be around. And I say I reconnected with him about a year ago. Went down to visit him in Florida, and we went out to dinner. He started doing the same thing with the salt shaker and the ketchup and everything. Yeah, so we'd set a pick here.
Some things never change.
Exactly.
How were you and your dad through this period? You said you got real close with your dad through this period.
I'd always been very close with my father. I was one of four kids. My parents were great. They always made each of us feel, special. But my father was a sports nut, and I was kind of the athlete in the family. Even, there was a smaller athlete, but I was athletic, and we both had, we're both like basketball nuts. But he also had this kind of a bias of thinking that, he grew up in New York City, that there was no basketball out on Long Island, so he was always kind of, okay, I'll go to the game, but I won't be very impressed, kind of thing. But I finally got him to start coming to games with me. And he loved it. We'd drive to the games all over Long Island when they're being played. I talk about in the book that got me very popular with my siblings, because we had a decent sized car, so I could always bring 3 or 4 people, and I was trying to use that to woo girls in addition to making friends and stuff. But it's kind of the best memories of my life, young life, was when I was driving in a car with my father, going to a game, or driving me to a camp or something. And we always had these great talks. He was a history teacher, which is a passion of mine, and we would always talk about, things, what I was doing in school and what I was going to do with life and everything. So I always felt I got like special time that my siblings didn't get, because I was aggressive at dragging him to things, which he enjoyed going to.
Fathers are always like that. They like being dragged along.
So as you're going on to the basketball game, right? How was the town? Like as you're going along further, I know you talk about this a little bit in the book, but I'd like you to elaborate. Like, what was the excitement like during that time?
Well, for starters, the town or the village always got behind the sports teams. It was a small village, so even the football and the basketball and the other sports. And when Friday night lights up north was basketball, it wasn't football like it is down here. But everything that's what you did if you were a kid. You went to the basketball game. And a lot of the parents, the local merchants, had the schedules and everything up inside their stores and stuff. So we generally filled that arena up pretty good. And that season, expectations were really high. And as it started off, the banners were up in the halls, and basically all day Friday, everybody just couldn't wait for the games to start. And so when the season got off, we got off to a great start. We won our first 4 or 5 games. There was a town Christmas tournament with those 8 schools inside the town of Babylon. And then I didn't go to all the games, because the varsity basketball games were played Tuesday afternoon and Friday night. And if it was a Tuesday away game, most of us I was at practice for my junior high team, so I didn't get to go to those games. So I think it was like the first Tuesday back, after we'd won our first 5, we were real high, and we heard that the team lost. They lost Amityville, who I talk about in the book. They had kicked the tar out of us in the football championship about a month earlier, and they're the antagonists in the book.
So you would say that the Amityville team lost was like an Amityville horror, you would say. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
That is the town where that takes place, though. That is the Amityville.
He told me not to make the joke. I had to. I couldn't help it. Now you talk about an injury that happens to you in the book, and that's a big focus of the book as well. Tell us a little bit about that and why that is such an important part of the story.
Well, part of it, so I was the junior high team was 7th and 8th grade. And I was on the team in the 7th grade, and I didn't play that much. Then the 8th grade, second year, I was pretty much planning on playing a lot more. But then I got injured and injured my foot, it was either during the tryouts or right after. So it's like, I was hobbled from the very beginning. The only fortunate thing about it is I think in the first 6 weeks in junior high, we played one of our 11 games. So I really missed only one game, but was sitting on the sidelines watching practice for all that time. And what it kind of a little let me to do, because I had to wait for my father to come pick me up from school. He sometimes couldn't get there late, and I would sit in on the varsity practices because they practiced after us. So I would get to see a little more in depth, what they were doing, and kind of helped in my understanding of what was going on there and the different dynamics and everything. But yeah, it was about 6 weeks, so I wasn't able to play until early January, and I gradually worked my way back into the starting lineup. And the guy who injured me was a good friend, but we were competing for the same spot, so it was yeah, I know you didn't mean it, or at least I didn't think you meant it.
But you're never quite sure.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, we got to ask. Big focus of this is on the one player, which is Glenn Vickers, who was the star of that team. What made him special, and how did he really drive you guys to that championship game?
Well, he was like I say, it's kind of a once in a generational talent. He was about 6'3", is about 6'3", and and if you think of kind of like a Magic Johnson minus 5 inches, he could play guard, he could play forward, and if our center got injured, he could play center. So he could do it all. I mean, for a guy that big to be the best ball handler on the team was remarkable. And we had other good ball handlers, but when it came down to crunch time, you can get it to him. And back then, as I used to I point out in the book, is the high school in particular, but I don't think college did either. There was no 3-point line and there was no shot clock. So if you had a really good guard who could hang on to the ball a lot, he'd make a fortune at the foul line because, if you got up, they'd have to foul him to get him to the line. But yeah, but the fact that he could play all those positions, and he was so dominant wherever he played. He always attracted, sometimes he'd still score 20 or 30 points, but he'd always attract double, triple coverage. And we had such a good supporting cast with that team that you couldn't afford to leave any of the other guys open. And it really, by that fact that he can handle the coverage, and also that everybody else could capitalize when he was getting that attention, really just made him for a super player. And he was only a junior that year too, so it was had more to come after that.
So oftentimes these kind of high school stars, that's where their story ends,
Mhm.
and they live the rest of their life talking about what happened in high school. These guys seem to have all went on to bigger and better things. What happened to the team afterwards?
A lot of the team members, I saw a bunch of them. We have probably out of the 12 that were on that team when I launched the book back in March. 7 of them came to the launch, so they're all bordering on retirement now. But Glenn went on to be a lawyer. He had hopes of perhaps playing in the NBA. He was a double-digit scorer in a Division I team that was ranked 19th at the end of his senior year, but didn't quite go high enough to make it. One of his teammates, who also came out of Suffolk County, a guy named Jeff Ruland, who played for the Sixers and the Bullets and everything, he went on to play, and we still see him every now and again. A lot of the players just went on to business. Probably about out of the 8 really deep players on the team, at least 5 or 6 of them played Division I or Division II basketball. But they all went through and got their degrees, and went into private life doing pretty well. And they're spread out around the kind of the Northeast. But it was good to see them all. Of course, they were all like, "Who are you again?" But
Well, and that
Just a
and
little.
that speaks to a coach, and I think this is what's amazing about this story to me is you mentioned these guys go on to play D2, D1, but that's not their story. It's a better personal life. And you look at the coach who you speak so fondly of. Obviously, he played a big part in their role in their lives, and really gave them the what's the word I'm looking for? Gave them the fortitude to really succeed in life.
yeah, yeah, it wasn't all about basketball for him, and he was, like I said, a very thoughtful guy. He was well read, and I'm sure he looked in on them if their academics weren't going well in high school. But And it was such a small school that, you knew if, if someone was uh, messing off around or something. But no, he was a good coach. All of the coaches, I didn't play for him. I played for a subsequent coach, Greg Walsh, and he was the same way with all of us. So it was ingrained in the culture there. So it was really, good. And like I said, he was a very bright guy in addition to that.
And you said Ray is still alive?
Who's that? Oh,
You're
Roy
Roy.
Cole.
Roy.
Yeah,
I
Roy is,
apologize.
yeah, Roy's 92. Yes, I reached out to him. We'd been on Facebook together, sending messages back and forth, and I remember when I sent him one that I said, I've just started. I'm going to write a book about that team back then. And he said, well, you'll be about the 13th person who's tried. I said a bunch of people, wrote a couple of chapters. I said, well, I'll finish it. You know me, I'll finish it. And then finally, I was kind of going back with him during the proof. And then when I got the first draft, I sent it over to him, and he was, wow, how do you remember all that? And I said, we've been talking about it for 40 years. Of course, I remember it all. But yeah, he really liked it. He did some editing. There were some things in here there that I'd gotten wrong, and that he was able to add. And then I also had Glenn read it for me as well, and in addition had some input. But all in all, yeah, I was half expecting when the book came out that a lot of people would be like, "Oh, you got this all wrong," or something like that. But they were all pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much how I remember it. God, that was great. Yeah, what a great time and everything.
How amazing! You talking before we started the show here, you said Jimmy V ties into this as well.
Yeah. So this, as I said, that this was Glenn's junior year, and after we won the Long Island Championship. I'll throw a spoiler alert: we repeated the next year. But well, after winning it that first year, Glenn's whole senior year, he was one of the top recruited guards in the country. And I talk a little bit about in the book some of the coaches that came out. Uh, in the semifinals in the county championships were played at this big high school, Ward Melville. And then we would go to the Nassau Coliseum, where Dr. J played for the Nets back then. And that's where the finals would be. But it was always seemed to be at that Ward Melville High Schools where all the college coaches came out. And I talk about in the book, I met Lucas Conaseca, Denny Crum, who was the coach at Maryland. But I met a bunch of those, Lefty Drizel. I saw Bobby Knight was there, Terry Holland for Virginia. So you saw all these big coaches, and a few of them came to our locker rooms, trying to recruit Glenn, and actually one or two of the players after Glenn. But Glenn had all these, top recruits, top college coaches coming after him. And Valvano had just taken over Iona. He'd gone from Bucknell to Iona. And I don't think Iona had ever had a winning season. Matter of fact, a lot of us had never heard of them. And we were all looking for it. Glenn's going to UCLA or North Carolina. We'll see him on TV. And then it's like, Iona, really? But Valvano is a second-year coach. You might have impressed, a heck of a salesman. And somehow he sold Glenn on being the centerpiece of the beginning of this program that he's going to bring to national prominence. He got Glenn, and he also got his senior year, probably the second best guard in the county was in North Babylon, named Kevin Hamilton. So he got the two of them that year. And then the next year he got Ruland, who was the best big man in the county and maybe in the state that year. He was 6'8", about to go to 6'10", and he's the one who went on playing the pros. But they had the three of them, and then they recruited about 4 or 5 other Long Island players. And I think Glenn's senior year, they ended up ranked 19th. Lost to Georgetown in the regional semifinals, but had beaten Louisville in the Garden that year, the year Louisville won it all with Denny Crum. So, with Darrell Griffith and all those guys. So, yeah, so Glenn went on and had a really good college career. He didn't make pro, but like I said, he went to law school and got his degree. And and so a lot of the other guys went on to do good things. But but Valvano, and then of course senior year when he recruited Glenn, he spoke at our varsity dinner and tore the house down. It was actually kind of funny because I told you Coble was a very funny guy too, and it was like almost like dueling comics nights that too, the two of them up there. So it was a bit of a fun time.
Well, I was looking at Amazon, and the reviews are unbelievable. It's all 5 stars. So where else can they find the book besides just on Amazon?
Well, it's pretty much anywhere. It's on Bar. It's at Barnes and Noble. It's pretty much anywhere you can buy books. Walmart. I have a website, Tom McKeown Books, TOMMCKEOWNBOOKS.com. You can buy it off there, and it'll also tell you other places. But it's in all of the Ingram Micro and all the fulfillers. So if you go to your favorite bookstore and order it, they'll get it for you. So it's pretty universally available, and it's gotten a number of reviews outside of that. Those are the ones you like to get the readers to get on there and really say how much they liked it and talk about it. But I did get some 5-star reviews from Midwest Book Review and Reader Views and a lot of other of those, which are really nice.
So go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say one last question. I have to ask you this because we come from a show, right? We just started out of the blue. We just decided, hey, father and son talk show, let's give it a shot. And then you just decide to write a book, which is just amazing to me. What can you tell our viewers here for anybody that may be afraid to write a book or don't know where to start?
The best advice, because it's not my first shot at writing a book, but it was the easiest flow I ever got into because I was writing what was close to me. It was what I liked, and it was my story. So I was able to just, it just came flowing out of me. So if I give anybody advice, is try and write as close to yourself as possible, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. The trick is getting started. Actually, I hear from a lot of publishers that what you'll probably end up doing if you just push through that first third and finish a book, what you do is you go back and you throw away the first third and you rewrite it. But the idea is to get going and don't stop writing when you're in the zone, or if you're dithering over a point or something. What's somebody's name going to be, or what are you going to call this? Just put something in there and keep going with the meat of the story, because the flow and getting into the zone is really the key part of it.
Well, now you are an award-winning author. Tom, we can't thank you enough for joining the show today. If anybody out there, pick up the book. This is a great story, a very underdog story told from an amazing point of view you don't see every time. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and continued good success with your show. It seems like you got a real hit there.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Tom.
it. What an amazing guy, by the way. And what an amazing story, especially as advice at just writing the book, writing what you're passionate about. Let me tell you, if there's anybody out there, he wrote an award-winning book off of a story when he was a kid. Not that I'm making a hint or anything here.
Yeah, you're about as subtle as a brick.
I'm just saying. I mean, you're obviously not as smart or talented as Tom. He clearly has a leg up on you there, but you could take a shot at it.
Speaking of taking shots, for those of you who want to pick up This Is Panther Country, we'll link to it in all of our social media on Sports Talk with Dad, and we'll link it below this video in YouTube.
All right, we got some other things to talk about here. A coach that we are very fond of is going home.
Mike McCarthy is the new head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the best part about this is I am going to predict now that Rodgers is going to be coming back to Pittsburgh. Go one more time with Mike McCarthy.
I said Mike McCarthy was going home. I'm going to be honest. His home is in Green Bay, in my opinion, and always will be. But what a great hire. People are bashing this hire all over the place.
If you look at the records of McCarthy compared to Sean Payton, John Harbaugh, he is every bit as good and a winner as those guys are. And I might argue he's a better turnaround artist.
I mean, he went 12-5 3 years in a row. Granted, he was knocked out of the playoffs every single time. And that's what got Tomlin in trouble. It's you're not going on runs. The last time either Mike Tomlin or Mike McCarthy went on a run was in 2016. Packers were in the NFC Championship when we got blown out by the Cardinals. Pittsburgh Steelers, or not the Cardinals, the Falcons, one of the birds. And Pittsburgh Steelers got beat by the New England Patriots.
Hey, look, there's good and bad in this. Mike is going back to his hometown.
He is.
He grew up a Steelers fan. That's always hard to become the coach of the team you rooted for. but he's now been the coach of 3 of the most iconic franchises in the NFL with Dallas, Green Bay, and now Pittsburgh. The only one missing is probably the Bears, and we don't ever want to see him there.
It's a great fit. Steelers fans are upset about it, but listen, Rodgers is definitely coming back.
Yes.
And I'm excited just to see a run with those two. He clearly showed last year he can still play.
He can.
And I think Mike McCarthy is a guy, one, who he respects. I know there was that fallout. People who love each other have fallouts. It happens. I think they can come back together. I think they can make it work. I don't think McCarthy's afraid to look at Aaron Rodgers and say, enough. And I think Aaron Rodgers, unlike what you saw with Arthur Smith, he's going to listen to him.
He will. And this is a departure from Pittsburgh because they always went with a defensive head coach.
Right.
That's their tradition.
Who was 38 or younger.
Right.
First coaching job.
McCarthy is still tough as nails.
Yeah.
And he'll be a great offensive coach, which they need there. And he'll bring in, my thought is they'll bring in Al Harris as a defensive coordinator.
I don't think there's any other option considering the Packers completely screwed the pooch on that one for a different week.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later on. But I think it's a great hire. And
it's got to be a quick turnaround. He was brought in to develop a quarterback. The question is, will it be Will Howard or...
No, it won't be Will Howard because like every other...
very easily be Malik Willis.
Every other Ohio State quarterback,
if you give C.J. Stroud protection, he looks like a much better quarterback. All right?
He's another Ohio State quarterback that is flaming out.
He's looking that way right now, but we still have hope for him.
Well, they've got to draft. They've got to get a quarterback. I don't think it'll be Malik Willis. If he brings in Willis, Rodgers won't be there. Willis is going to be a starter someplace this year.
Correct. They're going to sign him on a Sam Darnold deal. Speaking of Sam Darnold.
I bet you Minnesota wishes they would have had him for the full season.
No kidding. I want an apology from you for all the Sam Darnold hate. I got your back, dude. Like, what bothers me, this is why I cheer for Sam Darnold. I really analyzed this on why I cheer for Sam Darnold so much. And when he was with New York, he got caught on a hot mic saying he was seeing ghosts. He was being honest to a teammate. He was having a hard time in the game. He was seeing ghosts out there. That got picked up. And the national media, especially the New York media,
which is
just
brutal,
destroyed him over being honest in a situation where he was struggling. And the Jets just turned on him after that moment. And he gets to come back in Seattle. He ain't seeing ghosts no more.
Well, and I will say this about Darnold. He played in Carolina, bad situation. The Jets is a train wreck as always. He went to Minnesota, had a great regular season, and he learned lessons in the playoffs.
Yeah, like you need an offensive line that blocks for you when times get hard.
He threw a couple passes last night on a dime, and the Rams were there and ready to win that game, and they pulled it out, and now we'll see what he can do in the Super Bowl.
306 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions in the biggest game of his career. I am cheering for him to win this whole thing. The Broncos, on the other hand, a mistake by a backup early in the game cost him the whole thing.
If he doesn't throw that two-handed shovel pass backwards and they pick it up. And
why would you do that? Why are you not taking a sack in that situation?
Panic. You're trying to make a play. You're a backup. You're going to try to make. He should have just taken it, went down. Better to take the loss of yardage. He didn't know that the storm was going to be what it was. But it happened, and that was really the difference in the game.
It was. They missed a couple of field goals, one before the end of the first half. So did New England. The wind was just blowing. That last field goal to tie the game was blocked.
Yeah. It wasn't the kicker's fault. That was it was almost impossible to kick in those conditions.
If that wasn't blocked, that was right down the middle in a blizzard condition. That was a hell of a kick.
It was.
And it just got blocked. But to make mistakes like that, like your job, it's the same with C.J. Stroud. Your job with a defense like that is to hold on to the ball. And for you to give the ball up in that situation, allow them to score, that's what cost them the game. And then Vrabel, being the genius he is as a coach, just said, we're just going to keep running it.
Yeah.
Score.
It was the right thing to do. I'm going to be pulling for Seattle only because I don't like New England.
It's too soon.
It's just, they can't rebuild this quickly. They just can't, and they did. And why can't the Packers do that? But that's, again, a topic for next week.
Yes, it is. Mike McDonald. Also, did you see his his speech to his team at the beginning of the year?
No.
He spoke this into existence. He literally said, when we're at home in the NFC Championship game, literally just spoke it into existence. It's a team of destiny. I want to see Sam Darnold win it. I don't want to hear any more about Sam Darnold. I had to listen to your crap last year when the playoffs happened.
Wait a minute. Sam Darnold turned into Sam Darnold that we knew for many years last year. This year, he had every opportunity to buckle, and he never did. So props to Sam Darnold for playing a hell of a game yesterday.
It's a team of destiny. They got to win this year because clearly their offensive coordinator is going to be filling one of the jobs that are coming up, which, again, we're going to talk about more next week on our Super Bowl episode is really what it'll be.
I think we need to make the Russ phone ring.
I think it is going to have to happen. But as you and I have had a great show, but as you all know, you cannot have a conversation with your father without your dad getting the last word. So it is all you.
So Tom McKeown wrote the book, This Is Panther Country. The part I loved the most was the fact that he got to spend so much time with his dad. Kyle and I went through that. I mean, the coaches he was talking about could have been John Paulus, our tennis coach, who also coached the Wisconsin Badgers during that same period. If you have a chance to spend the time with kids, put the phone down. Get off the internet. You don't have to work that hard. Nothing's more important than the time you spend with your kids. Make sure you do it. And then pick up This Is Panther Country, and you can both talk to each other about it.
You never know that time what you get to spend with your dad and your son, somebody might write a book about one day. Thank you, as always, so much for watching. This has been Sports Talk with Dad. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.